Check, check, check. Oh no, not this again. Hang on for a minute, fellas. We might have to restart the stream. Dang. Which is weird, because it just showed me that it was working. Well, damn. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, there's just no visuals. Hey, Lou. Glad you could make it. There we go. All right. Finally got the webcam to work. So, to the live stream since I moved. Oh, but wait a minute. We don't need any of this. Ta-da! Oh, so yeah, this is going to be our new live stream space. Eventually I'm going to paint the walls a little bit, but I think it makes a pretty good little accent window back there. I've got all my stuff hung up. If you turn the lights off, it gets pretty spooky. Yeah. I intend to keep them on for now, though, because I've misplaced my ring light, which is usually how we see things. But I hope you guys are good. It's good to be back live again. It's been a while. I don't think I've been live in, man, couple of weeks, maybe. I can't remember. We got everything moved, so that's good. As you can see. Hang on, not to make anybody seasick, but I'll take you guys on a little tour here. Got my Conan prints and my access wall. That is my gaming computer, which I use, when I'm not making videos. And then I've got two other computers set up over here so that we can do a lot of compiling and stuff. I've got a lot more room. Lots of room to spread out and do things. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty cool. I've already started doing some videos. It's a lot more space. Your boy's not crammed into a corner anymore. So I hope you guys like the new space. I hope the foam I've got up on the wall dampens the rattle a little bit. I've got to get some more. And welcome to everyone that's come in. It's your boy, Dr. Plague. So, hope you guys are doing well. Like I said, it's been a hectic couple of weeks, but we finally made it in, and everything's looking pretty good. You could probably hear my son. His room is right next to my studio, so usually I have to watch when I record, or I get a lot of crossover there. But yeah, it's a much better space, much bigger, much more room for recordings and things. So I'm pretty happy with it. Let's see. It looks like we're gonna get the Rayford story on Monday, which wasn't really surprising. I know you guys have been looking for more Rayford Wood stuff. And then tonight, think I'm probably going to record live a lot of the stuff you're going to get on Tuesday and Thursday. I hope you guys have been enjoying the new Kashmir stories on Wednesday. I think they're pretty cool. It'll give you guys a look at some of the other stuff, like not just Dr. Winters or Grandpa or John who works at the hospital. It'll give you a look at the regular people in Kashmir, the people that get brought to Kashmir. Just the day-to-day activities around there. I think you guys will probably like it a lot. I think it should be a pretty big hit. Been working with ACX to try to get some voice work now that I don't have a job, so that's been going pretty well. A lot of if you guys do any voice work, I definitely recommend ACX. You go on there and that's where half of your narrations from like Audible and stuff come from. A lot of it's royalty work, like you're working for like a percentage of the royalties they make off of it. But you never know. You do 10 books and 8 of them come off with some kind of money. You're making pretty good cash there. But yeah, other than moving, that's what I've been up to lately. Just recording and stuff. Maybe Blondie, that would be a pretty good idea. The Barker is definitely going to make a return appearance. Like he's definitely coming back. I need to write a new Botanical Garden story concerning what happens when they come back, so that should be interesting. Something for you guys to look forward to. I think probably Friday we're going to get a new Grandpa story. I don't even really see the need to vote on him anymore. If Grandpa's on the table, usually that's what you guys want. So, I feel pretty confident if I put Grandpa up to a vote, he'd win. But we're coming up on a big midsummer Grandpa story as well, which should be a lot of fun. I've got La Dama de Blanca to voice Glimmer, as usual. And then old Whore on the Rocks decided he was going to voice somebody for me. So that was pretty cool. You'll have to listen out for him. You'll hear him, though. I feel pretty confident. Yeah. That's what's been going on over here. Just writing and writing and writing. Been working on a new Killian story the past couple of days. Hoping that the Baron is still lurking somewhere so I can ask him if he'd like to read it for me. You guys know he does a great job as Killian Barker. Working on more Black Site 12 stuff because I know you guys are hungry to figure out what happened to those kids. If any of you guys have got any questions or anything, shoot them my way. You know how I love to answer questions. Let's see. But yeah, it's been my son, his graduation went really well. Understandable, Lou. I'm related to my neighbors at this point, so don't really have that problem, but I've been there. I've definitely had some neighbors that needed to be in the place where I used to work. Lurking. Hey, Gamma. Good to see you, man. Yeah, should be a good time. If any of you guys are into I don't know, they used to call them ladies fiction. I know that's probably not the appropriate term anymore. I don't know what is. I'm narrating a book called what is this book called? A Fairy Tale for Snow White. It's a biggie. I think it's like a, what do they call it? A romantasy. It's like a fantasy romance. So when it comes out, I'll probably post up some things for it so you guys can go get it if you want. It's pretty cool. I enjoy reading it, and not just because they're paying me to do it. So, did you get a? I did not, Blondie. They were all pretty butthurt to see me go. Honestly, like they did not want me to leave. Which I mean, I get it. I wouldn't want me to leave either. But it's nice to to not have to go to jail every day. I'm not gonna lie, I've been sleeping a lot better, and my anxiety has been a lot better since, not having to return to a prison every day. Um, Mostly I just write and do ACX auditions and things, commission work and such. It's been really nice. I am financially destitute at this point because I paid all my money to get out of my house, but it's not too bad, honestly. I live out here without a mortgage and I just pay bills. I I've put in an application at the new Dollar General up the road. Actually, I had figured you guys would freak if you saw me in uniform. Maybe it'd help me market this thing. I don't know. Maybe the higher ups would read it and decide they wanted to put the book in store, which would be pretty cool. Yeah, definitely, Lou. It's not great. Pays good though. If any of you are looking for work, I definitely recommend your local prison. Corrections is very stressful, but it pays very well, and the benefits are really good. It kept my kids medical bills paid till I went to the jail, which their insurance sucked. I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Make it make sense. I want to buy my Blondie. I've got them all right here in my office. Shoot me an email after the live stream and let me know which one you want, and I'll pull it out, and we can talk PayPal information. And if any of you guys want books, my email address is in my profile on YouTube. If you want to message me, I'll send you a signed copy, and we can just go that way. I know some of you guys don't like dealing with Amazon. I totally get it. Jeff Bezos has way too much money. But yeah, no, if you guys want to go through me instead, I've got a ton of them in my closet. Like, too many books. Osiris, that should be coming out next month. I've got to do final edit on that. And then the Dollar General Beyond books should be available probably either the beginning or the mid part of July. Thank you, Cannibal. I like it. It's a much better spot. They do not, Lou. That's all county funds. The prisons are through the state, so their benefits are a lot better. The pay is usually a little better. And they get you certified like stupid quick. They want you certified carrying gas and in a dorm, like as quickly as they can. Advice for a novice. I do, Luke. Write. Just write every day. For me, that was how I improved. Was just use Grammarly as well, or some program like it, because it points out what you're doing wrong. And then it kind of helps you, because me personally, like, I have trouble with punctuation sometimes, or I used to. Using a tool like that helped me see where it was adding the punctuation. And after a while, I didn't need it because I was adding my own punctuation. It helped improve my grammar a lot. As for writing in general, just get comfortable with it. The more you write, the more comfortable you get. The better your writing will be. I know it sounds like a cop-out answer, but that's what I tell everybody. Just write. Just write and write and write. Even if you don't feel like it's any good, just keep writing. Because I got to tell you, a lot of the times I sit back from what I've wrote and I'm like, nobody's going to read this. Nobody's going to want this. This is going to flop. And then it does great. People love it. But if I had stopped writing, that wouldn't be the case. So whatever you do, just keep writing every day. Oh no. I've read some of what Stephen King says, but I don't remember precisely. Stephen King, I don't know, he's got such a weird relationship with writing. Like, I don't know, he loves it and he hates it at the same time. Well, thank you. I really hope that Douglas Gage Beyond Savings, which I have to call it for copyright reasons, is as good as the one you remember listening to on the channel. Because I feel like it is. Like, I feel like it's solid. It adds more background. You get a side story. It's really good. Like, I like it. I like it a lot. I really like the Dollar General series. I'm really hoping that it takes off and like Amazon wants to make a show out of it or something. Because I mean, I do all my publishing through Kindle, which is owned by Amazon. So I figure if anybody's going to do it, it'll probably be Amazon. Thank you. Oh, no worries, CR. Welcome. But yeah, it should definitely be done. Depending on how long it takes me to get done narrating this book, it should be done by either the first week of July or the middle part of July. But it'll be here before August. Like, it'll be here in July. That's good, Luke. I write for me because I have a lot of anxiety and I can't afford to go to therapy, and I don't know, I grew up in a household that didn't really trust therapy. So writing for me is my therapy. I write because otherwise I feel really anxious about time wasting. And it helps me feel better. So I write. I write and I write and I write. And I write too much, a lot of people say. But I like to write, and it makes me feel good, so I do. That's just me, though. I don't know. I hope your daughter enjoys your work, though. Like, my youngest doesn't read, and my oldest, he barely reads. So I almost have to make audiobooks so that they'll listen to them. I hope she's a little bit older if you're writing horror, but I don't know. My youngest has been a fan of horror since he was like 4, so he's a fan of the channel. Like, he likes listening to horror stories. Oh, this is not Dr. Plague merch, but it says Plagued with Problems. I found it at Spencer's and paid like $20 for it. I'm like, it'll look good on live streams. Anywho, what have I got here? What's this? I think we're just gonna make a new one. I was gonna say I might read some stories if you guys are in a story mood. I know most of you guys come for the stories, so you know, I want to give you guys what you came for, you know. Keep hoping that maybe something about Steam Labs, when I brought it up this time, it did not pop up the bar on the side where I can open up a little side panel for chat, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is, I guess. I might move some things around so I can continue to monitor chat. I really need to dual monitor it one of these days when I've got enough money for it. Let's see. Okay. So, do you guys want to hear one of my stories, or do you want to hear a guest story? Vote down below and let me know, and we will go from there. I've got a couple of not my stories, and then I have a couple of my stories. So, you know, we can go either way. I'm not picky. I've got to record all of them, so it is what it is there. That's cool, Luke. My oldest son had given me some story ideas too that I use every now and again. But yeah, no, it's always great when your kids kind of like submit you some great story ideas and just, you know, really help you with your creative focus there. Like, I dig it. Let's see. That can go away. That can come over here. Alrighty. I'm seeing a lot of my stories. So I've got a story about, surprise, surprise, camping. And I know how much you guys like camping stories. But this one's a little different, but I think you'll dig it. So, let me get everything set up, and we will... What you got, Lou? I like great business ideas. Oh, hey, Pegalicious. I did not notice you were there. I am so sorry. I like to try to say hey to everybody when they come in, but I'm bad at it sometimes. I'm sure that there are some guys out there that could use that class too, Lou, but we won't cast any aspersions there. Alrighty, so oh, also, I mean, I don't mean to throw shade at anybody here, but I see a lot of these like live recording live streams now, and I'm starting to see a lot more titles with cozy horror. So I don't know, man. I think I'm affecting the gene pool out there. I don't know. Starting to see a lot more of that. If they want to toss me a kudos, I mean, I'll take it. But, no shade. We could all use more cozy horror, though. Alrighty, I'll stop. I'll stop yapping. Let's the camping trip. Michael shook his head as he looked at the sun. It had to be near noon now, and here he was, sleeping under a tree like some drunk. He stood up and adjusted the strap on his pack. Dusting his pants off as he looked groggily down at the adjacent trail. He looked left, looked right, and as he got his bearings, he hiked deeper into the woods. The Appalachian Mountains were beautiful. They always had been. And it was easy to believe that if magic existed somewhere, it was here. Mike to all his friends, had always loved these woods. They weren't the well-maintained parks you sometimes saw in the campgrounds, but they weren't the rough and often daunting wilderness that you saw out west or in Washington or Oregon. Those were old forests, full of life and magic of their own. But the Appalachian Mountains had always felt welcoming to him in a way that nowhere else did. He and his brother had often hiked in the woods around their parents' house, and he had never felt like his life might be in danger when he was hiking close to home. He considered the mountains his home, more than the apartment he had in the city or the home he had once owned in Habersham. This was where he felt alive, where he felt free. Michael could... This is the process, people. This happens a lot. I hear that, Peg. I understand that, Gamma. If sometimes it feels like if I didn't do live recordings, I wouldn't do recordings at all. Well, he'd have a good template, Blondie. I wrote quite a few stories for him. Good for him. He deserves really decent stories, and if he's writing them, then I know they'll be good. Where he felt free. Let's see. Michael couldn't really remember those places very well, but that might be the traveling companions that he had with him. The bottle sloshed merrily in his pocket, and as he walked through the woods, he would sometimes take little nips from the neck to ease the memories. Life had been hard lately, but this was just what he needed after some shitty years. I gotta change that. You can't have curse words until like 3 minutes in if you want to monetize. Okay. just what he needed after some bad years. Just what he needed after a bad year. Bad year? More like a bad 5 years. He looked forward to these trips so much that he bought a calendar just for them every year. He marked the days till he could sit around a fire with Ian and talk about better days. When they were kids, their mother had called them Mike and Ike because they always thought alike. Michael looked at the trailhead and shook his groggy head again. How long had he been hiking? He should have been to the campsite by now. It was always in the same place, and he could have walked there in his sleep. His feet seemed to know the way better than he did. And he wondered if the fire pit would still be there. They had built it as kids, he and Ike. They had searched all afternoon for the rocks to make it. They'd been 12, and their parents had finally begun to slack off on their overnight camping trips. This would have been the 4th or 5th time that they had camped here. The spot, a place that they had both decided on, and he had decided that they needed to spruce it up a bit. This had led to some searching for logs, for branches, and the digging of the fire pit. Once they had dug down a little, Michael had decided that the space didn't look right. The two had looked at it with all the critical eye that a 12 and 11-year-old could muster, and finally decided that it needed rocks. A ring of rocks would be just the thing for their new fire pit, and so they set to searching for them. I don't know, Gamma. Sometimes I break it, but like most of the times, I try not to curse for the first 3 minutes, or, I don't know, the demonetization fairy comes down and bangs you on the head. It had taken them all day. The sun had gone down by the time that Ike had come back with that final stone, but it had been there ever since. He thought it might be lost. Nope, that's not the line. He thought he might be lost, right up until he emerged onto a familiar campsite and a familiar sour face. "How do you always manage to beat me here?" Michael said happily. "Probably because you always manage to show up late," his brother intoned, his face at odds with itself. He always seemed to be pleased to see him, but Michael supposed he wasn't happy to see him drunk and wandering the woods again. Irick, a hard name to grow up with, had always been a sober fella. Thoughtful, often dour, Irick and his brother were a study in contrasts. Michael was a big guy with a mop of blonde hair and a gregarious nature. Ike was tall and lean, his dirty blonde hair cut short, and he seemed to spend most of his time contemplating the mysteries of the universe. Their father had always said that he had the face of a politician or a preacher, someone in a position to stand over men's souls or lives, and his face reminded him of someone with a heavy weight on his shoulders. "Guilty. I must have just gotten a little lost," Mike said, as he took a seat on a log across from him. The fire pit had survived, it would seem, and now there was a fire burning in it as the sun began to set. The brothers sat in silence for a minute, and Mike felt the fog of awkwardness drop over him. It hadn't been like that. No. Hang on. Worst fair. You darn right. It means your money's going away. It had been like that for the last few years. They only really saw each other on the camping trips, and he hated that. He supposed it had something to do with his drinking. Once he and Ike had been prolific drinkers, but then his brother had swapped his night of bar hopping for the whole 2.5 kids and a white picket fence thing. Ike's wife didn't like the way he acted when the two of them got together, and their last couple of camping trips had been dry indeed. He still came to the camping trips, though, and that was what counted. You want one? Michael asked, digging a beer out of his knapsack. They're a little warm, but they drink all right. Ike slowly lowered his head and then reached into his pocket and pulled out a bronze poker chip. It was pretty, but it had definitely seen some battle. There was a 3 on it, and Michael guessed it meant it was his 3rd year. Apparently, I don't know how words work. Hey, Sue, I'm glad you could make it. We're just getting started. If you guys are just joining us, we're reading The Camping Trip, which is a little bit different than usual, but I think you guys will like it. We're not too far in. So, if you're just joining us, have a seat. It should be fun. Sorry, Mike. I've been sober for 3.5 years now. You drink if you want, but I think I'll pass. Suit yourself, Mike said, taking a big swig of lukewarm beer. So how is the old ball and chain anyway? Maggie's fine. Davy's almost 5 now. He looks a lot like you, he said, smiling sadly. Davy? Who's... But then it hit him and he smiled. Oh, that's right. Wow, 5 years old. Where does the time go? Ike shook his head sadly. You ask that every year, and I never seem to find an answer. The words hit him like a sledgehammer, and Michael felt something deep inside him. What was it? Regret? Sadness? He couldn't say, but it passed as quickly as a cloud across the sky. You know how it is, little brother. You just lose track sometime. Time gets away from you. Yeah, Ike said, staring at the fire. Time. That's just what I was thinking, too. You always did have trouble keeping up with time. Michael cleared his throat and took another big swig from his can before burping and launching it into the woods. Well, I'll just have to send him something loud and flashy so he knows that Uncle Mike is still thinking about him. Ike made a non-committal sound, and the two of them lapsed into another long silence. How about Mom and Dad? Michael asked suddenly, desperately wanting to break the tension. I bet they're still driving each other crazy. You know, Dad always says that's what he loves about Mom. She riles him up and makes him feel alive. Ike made a strange sound in his throat, like he was trying to swallow a towel, and when he looked up, Mike saw tears welling in his eyes. My dad died last year. Michael dropped the fresh can that he had been... Try that one again. Mike dropped the fresh can that he'd been about to open, beer spilling on the ground as he tried to find the words. Dad dead? Impossible. Dad couldn't be more than 55. Mom and Dad had both been... Mom and Dad had both had their boys young. They'd conceived Michael on prom night in their senior year, and while other people's parents always seemed so old and crotchety, their own parents had seemed so vibrant. Dad just retired, though. How could he... Dad retired 8 years ago, Mike. Ike swallowed more sadness as he looked up. He asked for you in the end. He wished you could be there. He wanted to see you before he passed. He wanted to see you so badly. No one called, Mike moaned, stomping his foot down and sending the beer rocketing over the hissing fire. I would have come. I would have been there. I had no idea. How would we have called you, Mike? Ike asked, finally letting some of the disappointment and anger slip into his voice. You haven't kept a job since high school. You haven't had an active cell phone since... He ground his teeth together. Since our parents stopped paying for it. Mike bit his lip. He wanted to be angry, but he just couldn't. Ike was right. He was kind of unreliable, but they still should have tried. Sorry, little brother. Not all of us have it together like you do. I'm a tumbleweed, man. I go where the mood takes me. Ike looked away, clearly wanting to say more, but not wanting to hurt his brother. Mike was unreliable, that much was obvious, but he still loved him, and he clearly cherished the time he had with him, more than he hated him. This was how it had been when they were kids, too. Ike had adored him, wanted to be just like him, back when there was something to adore and look up to. Mike had been a triple threat: football, basketball, and hockey. It had carried him through high school and gotten him a scholarship to the same college that Irick had worked his ass off to get into. There had been no question whether Ike was... We're reading The Camping Trip if you're just joining us, so pull up a log and have a sit, I guess. There'd been no question whether Ike was going to college. He had a 4.0 GPA. He'd been on the debate team and the student council. He'd been a mathlete, and he'd covered himself in scholarship opportunities, grants, and extra funding for whatever he wanted to do. His parents hadn't paid a dime to send him to school, and his college savings had been used to pay off the car that he'd bought in his freshman year. He'd managed to get himself a bachelor's degree while still keeping pace with Michael, and as they pub crawled and frat partied their way through their college years, it was only now that Michael considered what that must have done to him. If he'd suffered with hangovers and sick bellies during football practice and baseball games, then he couldn't imagine having to do it through an accelerated study program or while acting as a representative for various college organizations. Ike didn't look up from the fire, and the darkness that came in the wake of the setting sun made his face look skeletal. You were never really interested in getting it together, though, were you, Mike? Not after what happened with your shoulder. After that, you were never really interested in getting much of anything together. Mike didn't say anything, but the emotions were boiling around in his stomach like angry bees. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. We are reading The Camping Trip, if you guys are just joining us, so pull up a seat. Should be fun. Mike had made a habit of using his body hard, but what had happened had been a fluke. He'd been hit in his third year of what would have amounted to a general education degree, if he'd finished, and he'd been practicing his swing for an upcoming baseball game. Mike had swung at what he thought was a... That one again. Mike had swung at what he thought was the pitching machine's last ball. And when someone called his name, he had turned to say something to them. The explosion in his right shoulder as the ball hit him at around 95 miles an hour had taken the wind out of him, and he'd crashed to the ground as he thought for sure that he was going to die right there. It was fettuccine alfredo for us, Lou, but I made it out of a box, so Zatarain's did most of the work. Instead, he'd woken up in the hospital. His shoulder was broken, his collarbone had a nice-sized crack, and he'd have to be in an isolation cast for the next 8 months. There would be surgery, there would be more recovery, and Mike probably wouldn't play sports, contact or otherwise, for at least a year and a half. Had to find my spot. Mike had nothing but sports, and it took his injury to show him that Mike had nothing but sports, and it took his injury to show him that. The pills stopped working the way they should, and Mike got stronger stuff to make it feel better. Surgeries had to be rescheduled because he was constantly high or drunk, and over time, Mike had to come to grips with the fact that his career was over before it had started. The junk helped with the depression and the feelings of worthlessness, but nothing numbed the real pain. No one could fault you for wanting the pain to stop, but you never quite lost the desire for numbness, did you? Michael wrung his hands together. I guess not. Ooh, that does sound good. But not... I mean, it happens to the best of us, Peg. Let me fix this. I guess not. Alright, where were we? Oh, we're reading The Camping Trip, if any of you guys are just joining us. So, pull up a log and have a listen. The darkness settled around them as they sat in silence, both of them feeling the night as it crowded around their little fire and turned the world into a velvet dream. I miss you. You know that, right? Ike half whispered. Michael was still too drunk for feelings to permeate him, with much beyond sudden and often violent emotions, but he had to force back tears as he nodded. I miss you, but I need to leave you behind, Mike. Leave me behind? Mike asked, looking up suddenly. What do you mean, Irick? Something about hearing Mike say his real name seemed to make him hesitate, but Ike powered through it as he laid it all out. I need to stop coming out here. I need to leave you behind. When I think about you, it makes me thirsty. When I remember you and try to come to terms with what happened to you, it makes me want to fall into a bottle and never climb out again. I got a job offer from our old alma mater. They want me to teach. Try that again. They want me to come teach there. Offered to give me tenure if I'd stay for 4 years. I was excited, but as I walked across the campus, all I could see was your ghost. I could see you sleeping on the bench by student services. I could see you running with the team across the campus. I could see you posing for pictures in your new baseball uniform, and I felt for the first time in 5 years like I wanted to find the nearest frat house and drink until I couldn't stand up. I left. I had to reschedule, but I knew what I had to do. Ike looked up, his eyes pleading with Mike for something he didn't think he could give him. Mike, you have to move on. The crickets and the crackling fire were the only sound for what felt like a lifetime, and Mike was left trying to process what his brother was talking about. Move on? What, just not see my brother anymore? How the hell could you ask me to do something like that? We're family, Ike. How could you ever think I'd walk away from you? But Ike put a hand up, and that was when Mike saw it. It was just hanging off his wrist like it belonged there, and even though it was faded, Mike knew it would shout. And even though dogs are my nemesis. I feel that, Lou. Hot dogs usually don't like me very much. Shoot, Bar S is usually the best I can afford these days. They do make a good corn dog, though. Hanging off his wrist like it belongs there. Alright, let's see. And even though it was faded, Mike would have noticed it anywhere. It was his lucky bracelet, the one he'd had in high school, the puka shells clattering merrily as he pointed. Where'd you get that? That belongs to me. You should have... That was when he noticed the bracelet hanging off his own wrist. The two of them were identical. Could have been from the exact same kiosk at the mall where he'd gotten it when he was 15. But he knew that Ike had never had one. I got it from you, Ike said, looking down at it affectionately. It was the last thing you ever gave me. Mike shook his head, looking down at his own bracelet and trying to make sense of it. But no, that doesn't make any sense. I still have mine. How could I have given you my bracelet if I still have my bracelet? Ike was silent for a moment, worrying his lips and trying to find the words he needed. Because you were wearing it when we found you. What does that have to do with anything? How many beers have you drank tonight? For that matter, how much have you drank on the way here? What are you, my mom? Our mom, Ike sighed. But that's not the point. Just answer the question. Ike thought about it. I don't know, 4, maybe 5 beers, and a pull off a bottle of wild turkey. Hiking's thirsty work. Remember when we hiked through the state park? We drank so much we got lost for 3. Focus, Michael. How much beer is left in your backpack? Mike hefted the bag and was surprised at how hefty it was. I don't know. Couldn't be more than 2 or 3, I guess. I had a 6-pack in there and a bottle of... But when he unzipped it, Mike saw that the 6-pack was fresh and the bottle of wild turkey was unopened. No, Mike said, the bottle clinking against the cans as his hands shook. No, that's not possible. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but every time you appear out here, you have the same liquor, the same clothes, the same everything that you had on that night. What night? Mike asked, getting frustrated as he slammed his bag on the ground. The bottles broke. He heard them break, and the hissing from one of the cans was also audible. Mike expected to see liquids leaking into the fabric of his bag, but it never came. Ike was silent, just watching him, as Mike tried to put it together. And when he opened the bag again, the cans and bottle were intact and full. He hadn't imagined it. They had reformed, and now he was left holding the bag. What is this? Mike asked, staring at Ike as his brother watched the fire. 5 years ago, you were on one of these camping trips. It was right before Davy was born, and Maggie didn't want me to go. She was worried about me drinking. We got in a big fight about it, and finally I promised her I wouldn't drink on our trip. She made me swore that if she smelled booze on me when I came home, she'd divorce me. And I promised her, on our son's life, that I wouldn't drink. You didn't like that, so you drank enough for the both of us. You spent most of the night raging and ragging at me, telling me how I'd changed if I'd let a woman tell me what I was going to do. You were sloppy. You had way more in your backpack than you do now. And you'd probably drank about 15 beers on your own. I told you I was going to turn in. We were supposed to go fishing the next day. You said you were going for a walk. I need to clear my head a little. The thought of you being so spineless is keeping me awake, you said. And then you stumbled off into the woods. Stumbling off into the woods, Mike remembered that. That was all he could remember with any clarity. All he could remember when it came right down to it. His apartment, his life before coming into the woods were all a fuzzy memory. And Mike found he couldn't really remember anything other than stumbling through the woods. The more he tried to remember, and the more he couldn't, the more freaked out he got. He was hyperventilating. His head was spinning, but Ike was still sitting there staring at the fire. You weren't there in the morning, so I went looking for you. These were our woods, and we were both Eagle Scouts. Even so, your trail wasn't hard to follow. You had stumbled through the woods, a beer can here, a beer can there. Finally, I came to a steep drop that you hadn't seen, I guess. Your head was a bloody smear across one of the rocks in the drop, but you were still alive somehow. I tried to call for help, but there was no signal. You gave me your bracelet before you died, telling me to take it for luck. I've worn it ever since. I like to think that it does bring me luck. I fell into a depression after that, drinking to numb the pain, and Maggie let me for a while. She let me numb the pain until she couldn't take it anymore. She told me to get help, and I loved her and Davy enough to try it. I told myself that I'd give it a week, and if it didn't work, then I'd just leave. I'd leave so I didn't burden them, but it never came to that. AA was easier than it had any right to be, and before long I felt less inclined to drink. I've come a long way, but I couldn't quite stop the trips as easy as I could the booze. I came out here on the anniversary of your death, just wanting to remember you, but when you came stumbling out of the woods, just as you had on that day a year ago, I was speechless. We're reading The Camping Trip, if any of you guys are just joining us, so let me see what you guys are chuckling about here. Oh, dang. Corn dogs and cornbread? Man, you guys are making me hungry. That's my demographic. Just, a little bit asshole sometimes. Let's see. Where were we? Mike was still breathing heavily, but it all felt so unreal now. He couldn't remember any of this. All he remembered was going into the woods. Had he driven? Had he walked? How had he gotten into the woods in the first place? Mike rubbed his head. Why couldn't he remember? So wait, are you saying I'm a ghost or something? Ike shrugged. I don't know what you are, but you've come back for the last 4 years, and you don't seem to remember anything. It's like the camping trip where you died never happened, and you came back to camp the last time, every time. Mike just sat there, not sure what to make of this. I can't do this anymore, though. It isn't healthy to continue to fester here. Every year I come out, every year we argue about this, and every year you disappear into the woods again, and we do it again the next year. But no more. I can't do it anymore. I have to stop. This is the last year I'm coming out. I don't know why you stay here, but I can't haunt these woods with you anymore. Mike got shakily to his feet and began staggering towards the woods. I'm going for a walk. I need to clear my head and try to make sense of what you've told me here. I'll be back in the morning, then we can go fishing or something. Maybe after a good night's sleep, you'll be in a better state of mind. Michael headed off into the woods again, and Ike sighed as he shook his head and grabbed the bucket of water by the tent so we could put the fire out. The fire hissed like an angry cat as it went out, and it left Mike in the deep shadows that surrounded them. It was like this every year. He never remembered it, and it nearly broke Irik's heart every year. Never again, though. This would be the last visit, he thought, as he grabbed his bag and headed out of the woods. If Mike wanted to haunt these woods, then he would do it alone from now on. And that left a hollow place inside Irik that he doubted would ever be filled. I saw that, Blondie, but you are correct. At least it's not Florida. So yeah, that was the camping trip. I hope you guys liked it. It was a little different, a little more heartfelt than spooky, but I don't know. I liked it. Huh. My brother lives in Ohio, Lou. Actually, he's a blacksmith, which is weird to say. Like, he went to college for blacksmithing. He is a certified, I guess, certified blacksmith. He's got a bachelor's degree. I don't know. I don't know if you can get a bachelor's degree for that, but he has one. Hang on just a second. Got to get a sampling there of I don't know if most of you guys know anything about video making, but generally you get like a sampling of silence. That way you can put it in to get rid of some of the background noise. Pro tip. His name's David, actually. He is a Ohio blacksmith. I think he lives outside of Cleveland or something. It is kind of awesome. Like, when he told me what he was going to college for, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This isn't the 1800s. And he's like, I know, but that's what I want to do. So that's what he did. Good for him. I mean, If it's what brings him joy, then good for him. I I think everybody ought to make a living doing what brings them joy. Just I don't know. Like now that I get to do it more often, I think everybody ought to be able to do what they want to do and, have some joy in their life. It certainly does good for him. You too, Luke. Are you leaving us already? We're just about to start another story, but we'll catch you next time. Let me save this so that I don't lose it, because I will. I'm constantly like losing stories sometimes. It's not a good look. Alrighty. Get a little drinky to wet the pipes here. Got to get rid of that room ambient noise. You know how it is. And there we go. Alabama. Make sure it's saved. It did. Good. Okay. Well, let's do somebody else's story next, I guess, because I gotta get some of those in too. Let's see. This one is by... Oh, hey, Kay. I'm glad you could make it. This one's by Nicholas Leonard. I know some of you guys remember him. He does a lot of stories for the channel. He's got a good sound to his stories, and I really like them. You never know what you're going to get with Nicholas either. Some of his stories are a little weird, but I like them that way. Anyway, this one's called... Hang on. He sent me a couple. I'm looking for something particular. Okay. That one looks pretty good. Looking for something that's probably not going to get me demonetized. Nicholas has a very particular sense of humor, and sometimes I have to watch what he sends me. Well, we're glad you made it, Kay. You're just in time for another story, because we're just about to start one. This is called Chimp Cell by Nicholas Leonard. So we're gonna... Alright. Let's get cracking, shall we? If my son will stop screaming. My name is Eric Panic. I was on the Tanner City High School cheer team. I was the last of my friends to get their driver's license, only because of how busy I was volunteering at the Only because of how busy I was at the North Shore Animal Shelter. I have a 3.6 GPA, only because of how much I struggled in history and social studies. All of my friends mooched off me. And my chemistry... Struggled in history and social studies. probably all the dampeners I have on my mic too. There's a couple. I know you can see the big one there. Like I've got the big spit shield, but then I've got a lot of felt on the end of it too. Sometimes you can hear him, but sometimes not. I need more foam on the walls, I guess. Alright, let's get back to it. All my friends mooched off me in chemistry and math. I live with my mom, Rebecca Panic, though I'm moving to college soon, so I can get as far away from this town as I can. My escape routes are plenty because of my good grades, and my teachers wrote thoughtful notes and recommendations, but I keep... He's usually in here. I don't know where he's at. We actually fixed the screening on the front porch, so now all the cats like to hang out on the front porch. So that's probably where he's at. No, it's probably me, Lou. He's got that deep spectrum autism, and he likes to stim and make loud noises. So he comes by it naturally, though. That's his dad's got a touch of the tism there too. But I feel undeserving of it. I never have before, but maybe it was watching what happened in my own school, in Tanner City High, that makes me feel somewhat guilty for being able to take advantage of my opportunities. Chad still has his scholarship, but he certainly can't enlist in the Marines like he wanted to. I'm not sure how he and Becky will carry on. They've been dating since the 8th grade, so we hold out hope. But we've both changed so much. Becky says I'm the lucky one, that I still have my pretty face, but I hate that she said that, and I hate that I know everybody else thinks so too. We'll never go to the North Shore Mall again and laugh at how depressed the Easter Bunny looks, or go around smelling all the candles and lotion at the Bath and Body Works, while the boys... Try that one again. He did. He got it honest. While the boy about it. While the boys boy about it. Okay. That's a weird one. While the boys boy about in... That's a weird statement. While the boys boy about in the Lego store, Becky... Becky says I'm the lucky one, that I still have my pretty face. No, that's not where we were. Becky doesn't have a nose anymore, and Chad doesn't have any fingers anymore. Her smelling career's done, and his Lego building career's done, unless he wants to use his feet. I always felt bad for Elliot Tate, not because he was a chimpanzee, but because everybody treated him differently, because he was a chimpanzee. And that's exactly why I ended up taking Elliot Tate to senior prom in 2019. I wanted to be nice, give the kid a chance. I thought maybe he'd take to our friend group. Girl, people, listen. What the hell? Some of his phrasing is a little weird. Girl. Stick with me here. Girls, people, listen, please. Do not take anybody to the prom out of pity. Please, I beg you. You got a good heart, Erica, my mother would say to me. And that's what she said to me the Saturday morning I told her that I was going to ask Elliot to go to the senior prom with me. We were eating bowls of Honey Nut Cheerios in the kitchen while sunset came in. I just know you and this boy will make such a nice couple at the dance. What's he like? I don't know, I said, 3 Cheerios floating in the milk on my spoon. He doesn't talk much. He really doesn't have any friends. Has he special needs? I don't think so. There's never a para or an extra teacher around him. I think he just doesn't know how to make friends. Is he cute? I pictured his big grayish pink ears, protruding mouth, big brown eyes, and sloped shoulders. Well, he's shorter than me, I said. I had math class with Elliot, but he always sat in the back of class, never participating. I knew he had very messy handwriting. Do you remember Aunt Petunia? Of course I do. Your great Aunt Petunia. Ugh. Your great Your great aunt. I'm surprised you remember her. Why do you bring her up? Well, Elliot can only communicate through ASL, I said. My mother lifted her brow. Oh, really? Yes, but I just don't always know what he's saying. I'll look over my shoulder and see him signing. Of course, Mr. Johnson doesn't know sign language, so he probably just thinks he's playing with his fingers. Anyway, I was wondering if you still have that binder for all the signs. I think it's under my bed. I abandoned my bowl of Cheerios and milk and hurried upstairs into the cozier room of the house. Big windows, curtains, white as icing on a cake, and my mother's yellow satin sheets. I rummaged around the floor for a little while before finding the old ASL binder, which had the basics of sign language. My mother used to think it was cute to bring my... Whew. My mother used to think it was cute to bring me to see old Aunt Petunia, a woman who had to learn sign language because she smoked her own voice box out of her throat. I had some basic hand signs swishing around somewhere in my memory, but it had been almost 12 years since Aunt Petunia died. That had been, ironically, an ironically quiet funeral. I was 7 then, and only cried because she had lost her voice before she had lost her life. Yes, Lou, you are hearing that right. Nicholas has a love for chimpanzee stories, and a lot of them are really good. I'm hoping to see where this one's going. Let's see. All right. I spent that Saturday practicing. First, I practiced how to sign, "Will you go to prom with me?" Then I continued with, "Do you like math?" or "What are your hobbies?" I practiced, "Will you go to prom with me?" in the bathroom mirror. Something like that, probably. My fingers flicked effortlessly, and my thumb moved like a gymnast, ducking and tucking. The next day, my mom and I went out dress shopping, where I got a blue dress that was going to pair with a pink headband. I had the idea of doing a beehive behind the headband for prom, going for a 60s look. And that Monday at school, while people were coming into Mr. Johnson's classroom, I sat in the desk. The handwriting is kind of... I don't know. I really... If you submit stories, I really like them in a 12-point font. Like, my eyesight is terrible. I sat in the desk next to Elliot and signed, "Will you go to prom with me?" He froze with shock. Very... Oh, for God's sake. What the heck? Technical error there. I sat in the desk next to Elliot and signed, "Will you go to prom with me?" He froze with shock. Very enunciated on his chimpanzee face. If he had a voice, then he would have been speechless. I think I smirked at his shock. He nodded very frantically and rapidly signed back, "Yes, I will go to prom with you, Erica." I had to guess he signed my name because, truthfully, I didn't find Erica in the ASL binder. Knowing he knew how to hear English, he just couldn't speak it. I giggled out loud. He just couldn't. He just couldn't speak it. I giggled out loud. You sign better than a human. His excitement dwindled, and I worried that I'd hit a nerve. I'm sorry, I said, eyes darting around in search of something to patch up my mistake with. I thought you were cute, so I wanted to ask. His ears twitched up. His eyes sparkled, and though he smelled like a barnyard, he was very cute then. I thought that is... making a botch of this. Anything that is happy is cute, and I made him happy. What color dress will you wear? He signed, so I signed back blue. He nodded and signed, I want my mom to take me shopping for a tie. What color? I asked. Yellow, he signed. I looked down at his homework. His writing was very messy, but at least he knew how to spell his name. Tangents are hard, aren't they? I suggested, to which he nodded. I continued speaking. So-ko-ta sounds like a sorority, doesn't it? He nodded again and did a little hoot to let me know that he found the remark amusing. Then he turned solemnly and signed, I thought no one would ask someone like me. Someone like you, I asked, to which he nodded, and to which I asked, what do you mean, someone like you? He signed, a chimpanzee. I'm not tall like... And then he pointed to Stephen, the cutest guy in Mr. Johnson's class. I looked back at Elliot and gave him a little chortle. Oh, Elliot, that stuff doesn't matter. But I'm not popular, he signed. I'm ugly. No girls talk to me. Well, I'm talking to you, aren't I? He stopped. Maybe he had something to say, but just not the sign language to say it. Then he signed, I didn't want to make friends. Your friends are not like me. Well, sure they can be, Elliot. You just got to get to know them. Why do you say that? They do sports and have girlfriends. I didn't really know what to say to that, but I knew hesitating was too delicate a thing to show in these kinds of conversations. So I signed, girlfriends aren't all that. His thoroughly... Something like that. Sorry, guys, I'm butchering this. Might have to stretch this out just a little bit. That's a little better. Girlfriends aren't all that. Alright. This thoroughly amused him, and he bobbed his head in a nod so triumphant that he shook his desk. You just need friends first, I signed, my sign language being slower than his. Something stubborn within him crept into his eyes and kept them from sparkling, even though there was so much black sea where sparkles couldn't take place. Mr. Johnson came, and I left to sit in my own desk, fluttering my fingers behind me to wave goodbye to Elliot. Are you really taking Elliot to prom? Becky scolded while we were getting ready for cheer practice. We were in our white and blue skirts with the school letters on our... Yeah, okay, I read that right. We were in our white and blue skirts with the school letters on the cheeks because our coach insisted he got better at face painting one after I don't understand the statement, but okay. Face painting one another after the next basketball game. I thought you'd be taking Stephen, McKella blurted out. I see how you two look at each other, especially after he scores a goal and is all full of himself afterwards. It's get a basket, Michaela, Becky scolded. I already talked it over with Steven, I said, while trying. I already talked it over with Steven, I said, while tying my shoe. He's okay with it. Besides, Elliot wouldn't mind if Steven and I sneak in a dance. Why are you even going with him? Another girl asked. Because who else is going to take him? He's lonely. Everybody deserves to go to prom, I said. He's so weird, Becky whispered. I don't want to be near him at prom. Michaela started snickering to herself. What if I got Will to spike his punch? Don't do that, I exasperated, now tying my other shoe. Girls, just be nice, okay? He'll understand when we go and stand by with my friends. I talked with him. He's actually very nice. You talked with him? Becky gasped. Yeah, using sign language, I said. Michaela butted in. Oh my God, you guys, I need to know. Lilac or magenta? Our coach called for us, and all conversations were abandoned as we went into a robotic cheerleader mode. The next day, I sat next to Elliot before all the rest of our classmates came into Mr. Johnson's room. I'm excited, he signed. Oh yeah, me too, Elliot. I hope you think I'm a nice guy, a proper gentleman, he signed. I was just thinking that. I was like, this sounds like it's got the potential to be a real Carrie situation here. Chimpanzee with psychokinesis. That just, I don't know, man. I don't know. You already are, I smiled. Quit being so shy. See, you can hold a conversation. You're a natural. But not everybody understands ASL, he signed. I'll be your translator at prom. Again, his eyes did that thing where all the stars went out, black sea. No more sparkling. Was this because he was astonished, surprised, relieved? His eye... His wide mouth made an O shape, which made me smile, because I actually did find him rather cute. Okay, Mom, I called from the bathroom after checking the volume of my hair. I was satisfied that my headband showed just enough to make it seem as though I had a pink halo on my head. I'm gonna get going. Let me see you, my mother called back as I exited the bathroom and went downstairs, picking up the hem of my blue dress so I wouldn't fall. She stood between the bottom step and the front door and covered her mouth. She was looking at me the way people look at a rocket before it goes into space. Honey, she mused, slowly lowering her hands, you look beautiful. I gave an obliging smile. Is Elliot going to come pick you up? No, he doesn't drive. I'm going to pick him up, I said, finally landing in the foyer where she kissed my cheek. Please take a lot of pictures for me tonight. I will, Mom, and I kissed her goodbye, going outside to my car and driving away. We're reading Chimp Cell, if you guys are just joining us. Oh, Heather is a really good movie. But it's definitely not for everybody. It's a good one. If you've never seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. Let's see. Elliot and I got to the school while it was getting dark out. I see you got your yellow tie, I said, putting the car in park and turning off the ignition. He'd gotten the yellow tie. In fact, it was all he was wearing. He signed, Yes, my mom took me to get it. Well, I think you look very handsome, Elliot. I remained patient while he signed, You look very beautiful. Oh, Elliot, you're so sweet. Are you ready? He nodded. We entered the gymnasium together, walking into the blue light, which gave the gymnasium the illusion of being under the sea. Parts of girls' dresses glimmered, while Old Spice made the air smell radioactive. We stopped so I could scan the room in search of the girls. I saw them at the punch bowl, so Elliot and I walked over to them. I could tell Becky was about to gush over my appearance, but then she saw my date. Her voice was flat. Hi, Elliot. He waved, having to look up at her because she was only 4 feet. Because he was only 4 feet. He waved, having to look up at her because he was only 4 feet. Hey, you look cute, buddy, one of the girls said. Killer tie, man, another boy said, and I was glad to hear that they sounded genuine. Do you want some punch, Elliot? Another boy asked, and I was gladder to hear the sincerity in his offer. Elliot nodded, then looked up at me. Oh, no punch for me yet, I said, while they got Elliot a cup of punch. So, Elliot, how did you bag this baddie? One of the boys asked, to which Elliot signed in reply. I looked down at him, only partially catching what he signed, but I knew what he was saying, so I translated. Oh, I asked him. Yeah, Elliot, one of the boys cheered. Elliot was quite humble, or he really just didn't know how to react. I didn't have time enough to find and Let's try that again. I didn't have time enough to find it quite odd that the first thing his peers would ever congratulate him on was getting a woman to go out with him. Have you ever danced, Elliot? I asked, to which he shook his head. I started leading him out onto the floor, where the lights... were much bluer and brighter, and where the Old Spice radiation was more intense. I don't remember what song was on, but Elliot's attempt at dancing had to have been the cutest and funniest thing in the world. He swirled in place and made a snarl that suggested a cackle, though no noise came out. He was having fun, and I was glad to be with him. I mimicked the ladies' dance moves in Pulp Fiction. We returned to my cheerleader friends and their dates after a couple of songs. The boys told him they liked his dance moves, and he nodded, making that cackling snarl. I could tell that expression off-put some of my cheerleader friends. He moved his fingers, and I was glad I was the only one who knew sign language. I thought you all wouldn't like me, was what he had signed. What's he saying? One of the boys asked mid-laugh. My teeth hesitated to... Bleh. My teeth hesitated to top one another. He wasn't sure you guys would like him. Elliot, one of the boys complained. His fingers moved away, reminding us just how long and thick each finger was. You're just pretending. What's he saying, Erica? Becky asked. Chad popped up and kissed Becky on the cheek. Typical Becky, she looked annoyed, but didn't protest her boyfriend. I can't read today. Didn't protest her boyfriend's way of saying hello. Hey, Erica, Steven's looking for you, Chad said. Oh, hey, what's up, Elijah? His name is Elliot, Becky said, and I could tell she was trying hard not to roll her eyes. Erica, Steven called, while pushing through the people on the floor. He came to a halt and let out a breathless wow while looking me up and down. Erica, you look good too, Steven, I said on the verge of giggles. Chad stood behind Becky and locked his arms around her wrist. At this, I saw that annoyance dwindle in her eye. I need a break. Oof. A little water there. Okay. I looked down and saw Elliot signed. He's not going to steal you from me, is he? What's he saying? Stephen asked. Nothing. Hey guys, Elliot and I are gonna go over there and have a word. That all right? I asked, already preparing to shepherd Elliot off. We know you know what he said, Michaela said. Really, it's just harder to understand because it's dark in here, I lied. But if you hold enough kittens at the North Shore If you hold enough kittens at the North Shore Animal Shelter, you eventually become inept at committing petty sins like lying. Elliot was tugging on my arm, but I was looking at my friends. I glanced down and saw him sign, Mine, you're my date, mine, not his. He was pointing at Stephen at that last part. He started pulling me away. Steven stepped forward, going, "Yo, you okay with this, Erica?" Yeah, I'm fine. We just need to talk," I said over my shoulder. We reached the other. We reached the other. Hang on. We reached the other side, the less crowded side of the gymnasium. "Elliot, what's wrong?" He was signing. "I don't want you to talk or dance with other boys. I understand, but you do know Steven and I have liked each other for some time." "Why did you take me then?" He signed. "Because I thought you deserved to come with someone." "When do we..." He signed, and then signed something that made my stomach drop. My mouth fell open, and I wanted to step away, but I was just too shocked. He looked up at me, expecting me not to... Well, here goes my PG rating, I guess. He looked up at me, expecting not a yes or a no answer, but a win. I'm just going to spend the rest of the night with Steven." Elliot started rocking in place and shaking his head. His big pink ears flapped while his head shaking grew more rapid. I realized... Okay. I released my voice. "Elliot!" He started hooting and hopping across the gymnasium. How quickly my schoolmates dispersed. Steven barely had time to turn around when Elliot became airborne, spreading his long, way too long arms and landing on top of him. The music was still playing while my friends screamed and while Elliot let out a maniac chimpanzee laugh. That sounded weird. The music was still playing. The music was still playing while my friends screamed, and Elliot let out a maniac chimpanzee laugh. He was latched onto Steven like one of those giant hairy masks. Steven spun around. Everybody screamed, but I stayed still and watched how Steven spurted blood, purple, from under the deep sea lights. Elliot... Excuse me. Elliot squealed with some kind of demented delight after blinding Steven. Elliot hopped off, turning until facing Steven again. They were separating long enough for me to see the purple. Long enough for me to see the purple wishing wells that were now Steven's eyes. The poor boy had his face lifted. The poor boy had his face lifted up. As though that would give him back his sight. His mouth was open, screaming, but Elliot took the opportunity like some kind of mid-combat Jason Bourne and reached his long fingers up to hook the fingers into Steven's mouth. In synchronization with a cracking noise, Elliot ripped off Steven's jawbone, the whole jawbone, and started twirling around with it. There was a substantial amount of blood purpling on the gymnasium floor. Becky had slipped on it. Chad went to help her until Steven's jawbone ricocheted off his forehead. It stunned him long enough for Elliot to move to his next victim. Crunch. He bit Chad's fingers off on one hand, then bit the... Can't read, sorry. Then bit the other ones off too, pushing him down and trampling on him like a trampoline. Steven was balled up, crying and bleeding. Becky was screaming while watching her boyfriend being turned into a bouncy house, except the bouncy house was full of twigs and in someone's lawn. And what? Let's try that one again. Except the bouncy house wasn't full of twigs and on someone's lawn. It was on the hard gym floor, full of bones, and shattering more and more of them as he went. And Elliot was having a ball. It really was a night to remember. I remember the rest of it. I remember the rest of it in flashes. Becky's nose being bitten off and seeing the two fresh slits where her nostrils were. How different that made her eyes look. I remembered the popping sound of Elliot dislocating, then tugging on Stephen's arm, hooting and squealing and screaming. Blood, so purple and dark. I could smell the rusty smell of it. Elliot worked and worked on Stephen's shoulder. He was insistent on seeing to it that Stephen was going to be an amputee. "Erica," Becky wheezed. She had never sounded clearer before. You have to understand, I wish I had run too. I wish I had the wherewithal to be dispersed as well and gotten the hell out of that gymnasium. But I was entranced. I couldn't look away. It was horrible. I watched my friends and crush being torn apart. No, not apart, being bitten apart. "Erica!" Becky reached for me, crawling towards me on the thin surface of blood. That's when the police came in and shot Elliot. He caught the first few bullets in the back and chest on the... He caught the first few bullets on the back and chest. Back and chest. Starting to hobble over to the police officers, but they emptied their pistols into him. About 2 or 3 of them shot him in the head. About 2 or 3 of the shots opening his head. Music was still playing, but Becky was still reaching for me and wheezing my name while Stephen coughed to no avail. You wouldn't be surprised to hear that I followed the investigation immediately. Immensely. You wouldn't be surprised to hear that I followed the investigation immensely. What else was I going to do while I couldn't sleep? I also went down a rabbit hole of documented chimpanzee attacks on humans, and one in particular caught my attention. The St. James Davis chimpanzee attack in 2005. At an animal sanctuary, a man and his wife brought a birthday cake to Mo the chimpanzee, a chimp who used to live with them before being sent to the enclosure. St. James and his wife were eating the birthday cake with Mo when 2 other chimpanzees got out of their cages. The theory is that the other 2 chimps were jealous because Mo was getting cake and they weren't. One of the chimps came and bit off the wife's thumb before St. James heroically hid his wife underneath the table and absorbed the brunt of the chimp's envy. They did irrevocable damage to him. He went on to live his life forever disfigured and without certain extremities, all because 2 chimps were jealous that they didn't get any cake. Envy and self-entitlement drove these things to commit such heinous acts. I hope you understand the prejudice I've developed for this kind of animal, a hatred for them, and somehow a hatred for myself. I wish I could say I've stuck by Stephen, but my heart just simply isn't that good. It's not like my mother, though. It's not like... Oh. It's not like my mother thought. It's not that I'm going around dating anyone. Going around dating anyone. No, I'm not going to date for a long time. I don't even want to meet someone or something as sick and twisted and entitled as Elliot Tate. All right, and that was Chimp Cell. Sorry you guys had to watch me blunder through that. I don't know. I guess I just can't read today. It's no fault of the story. I don't know. I was having a hard time with it. Oh. I'm going to take a little break and answer some questions if you guys have got anything pressing. Yeah, the live readings have definitely been good. People tend to like watching me read stuff. If you guys have got any questions, ask away. I'm probably going to take a break before we read another one. Got to get my voice back. I've been doing audiobook narrating for most of the day, so my voice is a little bit crispy. But I think we might do one more, and then we'll probably call it a night. While we do that, let's make sure that tonight's story went up so that I has content. Oh wait, today is Saturday. Today's story should have already went up. Okay, good. It is. It's public. Cool, cool. Alrighty. A little hoarse. I'm feeling pony tonight. You know, a little hoarse. Let's see here. Well, this one is called A Fairy Tale for Snow White. It's a romantasy. It's pretty good. I don't think it's available yet. I don't know if it's available in book form or not yet. But it should be interesting to hear me narrate it. I do a lot of voices in it, so that could be kind of cool too. I know how you guys like it when I do voices. But yeah, no, I would definitely recommend it. It's been a lot of fun to read, so I imagine it'll be a lot of fun to listen to as well. Alright, for the last one, do you guys want to hear a story about a strange staircase, or do you want to hear a story about a garden? You guys let me know. Strange staircase or garden, and we will proceed from there. That looks like one for garden. Two for garden. No, just a regular staircase. I think. I think that's three for garden. So we'll probably go with garden then. Which is an interesting one. It's a pretty interesting story. I think you guys will like it. It's called Grandpa's Garden. Let me finish doing things to this one. That way I don't forget to do them later and just try to send everything to other places. That does sound like fun, Peg. I'm not gonna lie. Alright, here we go. Okay, so let's get the next one going here. Okay, so this will be our last story for the night. So settle in, guys, and we'll hear about Grandpa's Garden. I came home from work to find my wife vacuuming in my son's room. Again? I asked, already guessing the answer. She sighed. It's the second time this week, Dave. I need this to stop. I shook my head, laughing a little. I'll talk to him, I promised, and went to find my son. It isn't that strange for kids to collect things. Some of them collect bugs or baseball cards or interesting rocks, but my son's interest was getting pretty weird. could have understood finding Pokemon cards or even a box of old animal bones, but what he was collecting was dirt. It had started on Wednesday when his mother had been changing his sheets. She had noticed some dust on them, but that's pretty common for a 6-year-old. He wasn't a huge fan of baths, and sometimes he slept in the same clothes he had went to preschool in. It wasn't until she picked up the pillow so she could remove the case that she found the fistful of dirt that was hidden under it. Excuse me. Let's see. It was quite a bit of dirt, or so she said. She claimed it was about 6 or 7 big handfuls, and she wondered how long he had been putting it in there. She cleaned it up and asked him not to put dirt under his pillow again. It seemed he hadn't listened. I walked into the kitchen to find David coloring a picture at the table. I could see that he'd been digging in the dirt again, even from here. It seemed he'd been digging in the backyard a lot lately. David liked to garden. He was weird. Which was weird for a boy his age, but we tried to encourage him to be curious. His grandpa, my dad, had been teaching him how to garden before he passed, and I thought that he might have been continuing the garden his grandpa was tending as a way to remember him. I looked over at the back door as I approached the table, and I could see the flowers coming in. I guessed that David, like his grandpa, had a green thumb. "What you drawing, buddy?" I looked over his shoulder and saw that he was drawing flowers that circled a big tree, the very garden that I'd been looking at. "The garden," he answered, in his innocent little voice. I nodded, rolling a purple crayon under my finger. "You been playing in the garden today?" "Mm-hmm," he said, his tongue sticking out as he colored. I nodded again, clearly beating around the bush as I tried to get to the point. "Mom says she keeps finding dirt under your pillow. Is there a reason you keep hiding dirt under there?" "'Cause he tells me to," David said. "Who tells you to, buddy?" He opened his mouth, but he seemed to think better of it. "No one," he said, too quickly. That made me feel a little uneasy. "You can tell me, buddy, if someone's making you put dirt under there?" No, that's not the line. Is someone making you put dirt under there? "No," he said, and when he kept ignoring me to color his picture, I started to lose interest. "Okay, well, no more dirt under your pillow. Okay, buddy?" "Yes, Daddy," he said, and I left him to his coloring, thinking the situation had been handled. I was heading to the shower later, his bedtime already passed, when I heard something that made me wonder. No, they say I can't do it anymore." "I don't know. I don't want to stop talking to you, but I have to follow the rules." He was quiet. He seemed to be listening to something. I know you want out. I'm trying my best, but it's hard to dig." I peeked around the corner and saw him lying in bed. He was talking to his pillow. His words muffled something. Let's try that one again. His words muffled sometimes. His words muffled sometimes as he spoke to whoever it was that he was talking to. If someone was talking to him, it was too low for me to hear, and when he rolled away from the door, I wondered if he was talking to the dirt that was probably under his pillow. I started watching him a little closer after that, especially when he was in the garden. We're listening to Grandpa's Garden if you're just joining us, so pull up a chair. We're still pretty fresh into it. He watered and weeded daily, but sometimes it seemed like he was just digging, like all kids did. But this digging wasn't as haphazard as it could have been. He was digging in a particular place, what would have been the south side of the tree. I didn't really like him playing there. It stirred up a lot of memories, but it would have seemed odd for me to tell him to stop. He was digging in the exact place where his grandfather had laid as he breathed his last. I took some comfort that he had died in his garden, a place he loved more than most people, it seemed. I'd seen him working in the garden all the time when I was a kid, but my interactions hadn't been as nice as the one I'd had with my son. No one was allowed to touch his plants, but him and... Let's try that one again. No one was allowed to touch his plants but him. And I got taken to task more times than I care to remember over things that happened in the garden. An errant football or a misthrown baseball was all it would take to get a lick with the belt across my backside. My son seemed to have been immune to this, however. When he was born, he had become the apple of his grandpa's eye. My dad would take him into the garden, teaching him how to till the soil, how to plant, and when to plant. They had loved it out there, but Dad had always made it clear that it was an activity for him and his grandson, and I wasn't invited. "You just mess it up, like you did when you were little," he would say. Now it seemed my son was keeping the garden in his memory, but it was still weird to see him out there digging so furiously. The dirt kept appearing under his pillow. Not just under his pillow, either. The dirt was beginning to appear under his bed. His mother was beside herself, and every day when I came home, it seemed like there was more dirt in the house. "You have to talk to him," she said one night, my son once again coloring at the table. "Today I found it under his bed, under his pillow, and in buckets in his closet. I don't know how it's getting in here, or where he's even getting it all from, but it has to stop." I rubbed my neck as I came into the kitchen. I'd never been as hands-on as my dad had been. I didn't want my son to fear me the way that I had feared his grandpa. I tried not to shout, and I'd never so much as swatted his hand. I wanted him raised differently, but it seemed that now I'd given him a little bit too much leeway. "Hey, I thought we talked about the dirt, kiddo." David nodded, not looking up from his coloring. "Yeah, I know." He was coloring another picture of the garden, the flowers in bloom, and now there was something different there, too. In the middle of the garden was a dark hole that seemed to sit right between all the colorful plants. A hole with a pair of red eyes looking out of it. I didn't like that hole. It was right in the place my son usually dug, and it made me shudder. "What's that?" I asked, pointing to the hole that he had colored with his black crayon, all except the eyes. "Nothing," he said, too quickly. "No secrets, pal. Come on. I won't be mad. Does it have something to do with the dirt?" David looked like he wanted to say something, but instead he just shook his head. "No, it's just a hole." I didn't press it, but I probably should have. I reminded him that the dirt needed to stay in the yard, and he went back to coloring. That night, however, I lingered by his door after lights out to see if I could catch any more weird conversations. I wasn't disappointed. My wife looked at me strangely as she came out of the bathroom, but I shushed her and told her to move on. She shrugged, shaking her head as she went past, but I was sure that the whispering had something to do with it. I was crouched by the doorframe like some kind of stalker as I wallowed down under... As he wallowed down. As he wallowed down underneath his covers. When David started whispering, I was ready. No, they said I couldn't anymore. No, they'll catch me and I'll get in trouble. Mom already said I couldn't play video games until the weekend. and it'll be longer if I get caught again." David paused for a long time then, like he was listening to something. And when he spoke again, I could hear the tears in his voice. "Don't talk like that. Of course I love you. I want you to get better. I know, but I can't keep bringing it inside. I know why you want me to do it, but I can't. If you loved me so much, then you wouldn't ask me to." And then I heard him flop over and go to sleep, as if whoever he was talking to, whoever he was, and then I And then I heard him flop over and go to sleep, and if whoever he was talking to was still talking, he wasn't listening. I kept watching him over the next few days, but he didn't even go near the garden until it was time to water or weed it. David stayed inside more, reading or coloring, but the dirt still appeared. It wasn't a lot, just a few handfuls beneath his pillow, but my wife was beside herself with anger. She grounded him for a month from playing video games, and wouldn't let him stay at his friend's house until further notice. He nodded, accepting it, but I'd begun to wonder where it was all coming from. I mentioned this to her, but she just pushed it off as him doing it when no one was looking. It's under his pillow. It has to be him. Who else could be bringing dirt into the house? Punished or not, David didn't seem to be bothered by it. In fact, I thought he might be getting sick. He was listless, dark circles forming under his eyes, and I took him to the doctor at the end of the first week to make sure that he didn't have a cold or something. She said he was healthy, but she wanted to put him on something to help him sleep. Poor kid looks like he's suffering from exhaustion. The source of his exhaustion became apparent a few nights later. I would have probably never caught him if I hadn't gotten up to pee at around 3 a.m. I stopped at his door to check on him, and something didn't seem right. His bed didn't look the way it usually did. His pillows were a little too poofy. And when I flipped back the covers, I found that David's bed was empty. I started tearing through the house, checking everywhere that he might be. And when I came to the kitchen, I found that someone had left the back porch light on. I couldn't see him. Not at first. But then I saw something come flying up over the hole in the middle of the garden. "I don't know," I heard him half whisper from the hole. "I thought you said you were there." I crept up to the hole, not making a sound, but as I got closer, I heard David start to get frustrated. "I don't know. I'm trying, but the ground's too hard. I can't get to you, Grandpa. I want to help you, but the ground's too hard. My fingers are bleeding. Please, help me. I've dug so deep. I can't. David," I asked, and he jumped and looked up guiltily. "It's a little late for digging, don't you think?" He looked down as he stood in that hole, and when I put a hand down to offer to get him up, and offered to get him some hot chocolate so we could talk about this, he shook his head. No, I need to get Grandpa out. He says he's trapped, and I need to get him out." He tried to keep digging, but there was no going any deeper. My wife came out when I called for help, but we couldn't manage to wrestle him out of the hole. We had to call for help. Help from the people in the white vans who spoke in soft voices. And that was the end of David's digging. The men at the facility they took him to say he's doing much better. Being away from the garden seems to help him, but they want to keep him for a while so they can be sure. I hate it for him. I hate seeing David like this, and I hate even more that I can't tell them the truth. The truth is that I know why David keeps the dirt under his pillow. It's the same reason I try to avoid the backyard as much as possible. You see, I haven't been the best narrator, and for that I apologize. I thought that only two people knew what was really good. I had thought that only two people knew what really happened to my dad. To most of the world, they think he just wandered off and never came back. He'd been diagnosed with dementia, after all, but he was such a stubborn old goat that he wouldn't go live with anyone. The old person he... The only person he ever remembered was David, but after getting a call to come pick him up from the police, I'd tried to put my foot down. Dad didn't like that. He didn't like that one bit. This time, however, when he tried to put his hands on me, I pushed him away, and he smashed his head on one of those huge roots at the bottom of the tree. Dad had made my childhood a living nightmare, and I wasn't going to let him take my adulthood because I had finally decided to stand up for myself. So I buried him. I buried him in his garden. I planted some flowers on top of it. No one looked too hard. People moved on, and as his only living child, I took control of my childhood home and his accounts. Sitting here writing this, I can hear him whispering as I sit on the back patio and listen to the night birds. He wants out. He wants to be buried next to Mom, and he wants the police to know what I did, but he'll need something better than a 6-year-old to dig him up. The concrete I poured on top of him before I filled in the hole will keep most things from uncovering him. The more I think about it, the more I think this backyard could use a pool. Something below ground. Something with a diving board. I think those flowers have been here about long enough. And that was Grandpa's garden. Let's see. I think that's just about gonna do it for tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. It's been great. We've been going for about 2 hours, too, which is pretty good for me. But I really hope you guys like the new digs, and I hope you guys will join me for my next live stream. They should hopefully be more regular now that I've got space to do it and more time to do them. So, it's been really good hanging out with you guys, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. So, till then, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.